I call up the head of Disney and I get this guy on the phone. I'm like, let me ask you a question. I know I got rejected, but how close was I to getting in? He goes, well, we picked 17 artists from over 3,800 portfolios around the world, and you made it to number 20. I'd only missed it by 3. You know how many times in our life we could be so close to achieving a goal? We feel we're miles away, and all we needed to do is push a little bit more. And then I asked him the billion-dollar question. Why did I not get in? And he told me. He's like, you know what? Honestly, you need more perspective in your drawing. Instead of drawing animals and people from where your eyes are, go down and look up at someone, or stand on a stool and look down. And I was like, boom, answer key. I put a brand new portfolio together. I sent it into Disney, and boom, when you wish upon a star, I got in. I finally got my dream.
You're listening to the Genius Scouts podcast with Justin Oberman and Aaron Zakowski. Join us each week as we bring you exclusive conversations with the business leaders and innovators you need to know about, sharing the secrets that fuel their success and power their personal brands. Let's dive in.
Aaron, I know how excited we both are about today's guest. Saul Blinkoff is a multifaceted talent. He is a Hollywood filmmaker, animator, director, producer, keynote speaker, life coach, and podcast host whose journey from childhood dreamer to creative powerhouse is nothing short of inspiring. He began his career at Walt Disney Studios, contributing to iconic films like Pocahontas, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Mulan, and Tarzan. He made his directorial debut with MTV's Spy Groove and later returned to Disney to direct Winnie the Pooh, Springtime with Roo, and Kronk's New Groove. Saul's also directed high-profile commercials for brands like Best Buy, Dunkin' Donuts, ESPN, Subway, Mercedes-Benz, EE Sports, and Build-A-Bear, as well as with me, Athena in Australia, and he has countless credits across hit TV shows. In addition to his film and television work, Saul is a sought-after keynote speaker known for delivering high-energy presentations packed with practical tools for success, meaning, and fulfillment, as well as a life coach, empowering individuals to achieve their goals and realize their full potential. Saul, it's quite a resume. Welcome to Genius Scouts. We're thrilled to have you here. And I just want to say that you are the perfect specimen of what we're always talking about in Genius Scouts, of it's not just about what you do, it's about who you are. That makes you want to, makes people want to work with you, hire you, whatever it is with you. And I think that your story actually about how you got your job at Disney is a really, really good example of that. So can you tell us that story? Really
Yeah,
quick?
sure. And just what a pleasure to be here with you guys. And I just want to say to your audience, it's an amazing thing. Every time an audience, one listener or 1,000, it doesn't matter. Every time a listener shows up to a podcast like this, you should already commend yourself, because you're saying that with all the things that are vying for my attention out there and all the social media and all the places you can be, you're coming here because you want to hear wisdom. And but we have to be careful, because a lot of times in life we'll hear something that will inspire us. Everybody loves to be inspired. We all want inspiration, but we need to be careful, because inspiration comes and goes. Inspiration slips through our fingertips. One moment you're inspired, the next day it's like, wait, what did he say? What did she say? I always remind myself, it's one thing to be inspired. It's another to live inspired. The goal has to be, how do I hear something and apply it to my life? Because if you show up to something like this and you just hear something that you think sounds true, but you don't change what you do, you've wasted your time. So I commend all of you, and I encourage you to try to take something that you've heard in this conversation and apply it to your life. Justin, like you said, we're all living a story. My story starts 6 years old. I love to do what all 6-year-olds love to do. I love to draw. I was an artist. I was drawing on walls with my mother's lipstick. I always tell my kids, do not try that, even though Dad did that. And, I wanted to be an artist. And then I'm 11 years old, and I go to the movies, and I see a movie that changes my life. Here, I got a little toy next to my desk here. I'll show you the movie.
Oh, yeah.
See, all animators have toys by our desk. So those of you who are listening and can't see, I'm holding an actual toy of E.T. in the bike with Elliot. So I'm 11 years old, and I see the movie E.T. And it was inspiring. It was amazing. It was empowering because the main character is a kid. He's an 11-year-old kid. It was an amazing thing for me. And I tapped my mom at the end of the movie and I'm like, Mom, that's what I want to do someday. And she's like, what, you want to leave planet Earth in a spaceship? I'm like, no, I want to make movies. And I grew up in New York. I didn't know any filmmakers. I didn't know anybody that had creative jobs. I knew people that had businesses, doctors, lawyers, bakers. I didn't know anyone that had a creative job. So for me, when I had that clarity that I want to do something creative, I used to love to draw. Now I saw film as an entree into me telling stories. So I went to a building that our kids will never go to. It's a building that you used to go to get information. It's called a library. Yeah, that's right. As my kids always say, the olden days, right? So I went to a library and I got books on cameras, lenses, storyboarding. I found out that Steven Spielberg, the director, made movies every weekend. So I got my twin sister, my older brother, kids in the neighborhood. I started making movies, murder movies, monster movies. I remember we went into the house to watch a movie that I had made, and my sister was still tied to the tree from one of the scenes that we were shooting. And I remember my mom going, I like the movie, but where's your sister? I'm like, she's still tied to the tree. What's wrong? So look, guys, I knew I was going to be a filmmaker. That was my dream. And then I got to high school and I'm walking the halls of high school and somebody comes up to me and they said, what are you going to do when you get out of high school? I said, I want to be a filmmaker. They're like, no, you don't want to do that. I said, yeah, I do. They're like, no, you don't, because Hollywood's filled with weirdos. You're going to move out to California. You're going to become a weirdo. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be a weirdo. So right then and there, I gave up on that dream. And, of course, today I do live in Hollywood and my 4 kids would tell you their dad is a weirdo. So much for that.
And you are the weirdo.
There you go. Right. But look, at that point, I gave up on that dream. And to me, it's always a tragedy when we allow others to define the trajectory of our goals and our dreams. We're so impressionable. We allow others to tell us what we can do and can't do. And I was so impressionable. So I gave up on being a filmmaker. My parents like, so what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I'll go back to loving art. And look, I was very lucky. I'm definitely the minority. I was the artist that had very supportive parents. So many times I meet artists and they're like, my parents never supported it. They wanted me to have something to fall back on. And I had very supportive parents. They hired an art teacher to come to our house, a private teacher. She taught me painting, charcoal, pencil, all of it. As a matter of fact, she used to tell me to go to restaurants and cafes and draw people in cafes from life. So I would do that. And I got all my drawings together. I showed them to her. And she says, I like your drawings, but I noticed that all the people you drew, none of them have hands. Why didn't they have hands? And I said, well, no, they did have hands. I just didn't draw them. She goes, why not? I said, because drawing hands is difficult. It's hard. She goes, oh, that's hard? Okay. Every night before you go to bed, I want you to draw your hand from another position. And that's exactly what I did. And in 6 months, I got good at drawing hands. And she taught me one of the most valuable lessons in life. And for those of you that have tuned into this episode, you can forget everything I've said up until now. Walk away from this episode with one idea. It's have a singular mindset to turn our weakness into our strength. And if in your life anyone ever comes to you and points out one of your weaknesses, you know what you should do? You should hug them, because our weaknesses is nothing less than the answer key to growing. Look, I grew up in the 90s. You know what that means? It means I actually do know who the greatest basketball player to ever play is, right? Aaron, who's the best of all time? Who's the GOAT? Come on.
I know it depends if my kids are going to hear this or not, but obviously Michael Jordan.
There you go. I think you should lose the line, I would say Michael Jordan, and just say Michael Jordan, okay? So, and those of you that are listening and are screaming LeBron at the screen, you just turn this whole thing off right now. Just we don't even need your patronage.
Go back to the next episode.
That's right. So look, Michael Jordan, true story told about him. He's in the NBA the first year, and he's already a scoring machine. He already has Air Jordan sneakers. And after one of his games, a sports writer for Sports Illustrated comes up to him and says, Michael, you're a scoring machine, but you have no defense. You know what Michael could have said to the guy? Dude, could you get out of my face? I'm Michael Jordan. I'm going to listen to you. But Jordan said that he heard one thing. If this guy's telling me that I don't have a defensive game, I guess I better work harder on defense. And he did. And next year in the NBA, actually 2 years later in the NBA, one player was named Defensive Player of the Year. Number 23, Michael Jordan.
Hmm.
What made Michael the greatest is he had a singular mindset to turn his weakness into his strength. That's a tool for all of us. So I would draw hands. I got my drawings together. I was going to be an artist. And then I went to the movies and I saw another movie that changed my life. Okay, let's test your guys' Disney knowledge. I'll hum the song and you guys
Cool.
tell me what it is. You ready? I'll sing the opening.
I'll
All
go
right, here we
hammer.
go. This is right here we go. The seaweed is always greener in
Little Mermaid.
some. There you go. Aaron gets it. Boom. Justin's like, little what?
Mermaid.
You've seen it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean the original, not the new one, right? I'm talking the original.
yeah.
So I'm in the theater watching that movie, and there's a scene in that movie where Ariel is singing. The song is called Part of Your World. She wants to understand humans up there. And she has this one line I'll never forget. It's what's a fire and why does it? What's the word?
Burn.
Boom. Aaron, extra credit, man. That's awesome, dude.
I grew up in the 90s down the block from Disney Lounge. We
You
watched
know
all these
it.
movies many times.
That's right. So, look, you guys are storytellers. You know about storytelling. When anyone's creating a story, you got to make sure that your audience can relate to the protagonist, the main character. Because when we, an audience, find a protagonist that we can relate to, then we're not watching a story about someone else. We're watching a story about ourselves. Isn't that how we felt when we saw the Karate Kid and he did the big kick at the end? You weren't watching a story about Daniel. You're watching a story about me. I know what it's like to want to stand up to bullies. When you saw Star Wars the first time, it wasn't Luke, some farmer. It was me. It's like, yeah, I want a better life. I want to do something big. I want to change the world. So I'm watching The Little Mermaid, and she's singing this song. What's a fire? And why does it burn? How can we relate to that? And yet it became one of the biggest animated movies in history, BF, before Frozen, right? And why did it become so big? Because Ariel didn't want to understand fire. She wanted to understand the world around her. And the more that we understand the world around us, the more we understand our place in the world. And that is primal. That's something all of us want. And when she says the line, what's a fire and why does it, what's the word burn? The animator who animated it, his name is Glenn Keane. And you probably never heard of him, but Glenn designed and animated Ariel, the Beast, Aladdin, Tarzan, Pocahontas. You've heard of his characters. He's the Oscar-winning filmmaker who teamed up with Kobe Bryant and made Love of Basketball short, which is an amazing short if you guys haven't seen it. And when Glenn animated that scene, we always say at Disney, we are actors, but with pencils, right? We have to act out the scenes. So as an animator, he could have done anything for that scene. It could have been Ariel going like this. What's a fire and why does it? What's the word? Burn. Could have been like that. And those of you that are just listening, I'm just acting out like things in my hand where I'm like, just thinking, putting my finger to my head. What is that? So what did Glenn do? He has her take her hands, cross her chest, close her eyes, arch her back, and say, what's the word? Burn. And when she says the word burn, the fire is inside her. And that was primal. And I'm staring at the screen. I'm a teenager. I'm in high school. And I'm like, you know what? There's a fire in me. That's what I want to do. And all of a sudden, guys, I had the clarity. My love of filmmaking, my love of drawing, put them together. It was animation. And plus, I found out that Disney had a studio in Orlando, Florida. I don't have to go to Hollywood. So there I was, junior in high school, and I knew my dream was to be a Disney animator. That was really the start of it. You know, you asked what my story is. That was really where I had the clarity of knowing exactly what I wanted to do. It was very competitive. Pixar didn't exist then. DreamWorks didn't exist then. There was no big animation movies from anybody. And it was very competitive. I went to school the first week to this. I went to an art college in Columbus, Ohio, Columbus College of Art and Design. And that's how I found out, you know, that Disney recruited from only 8 art schools. And the first week I remember going into my dorm room, and my roommate had like Mickey Mouse slippers and Mickey Mouse posters, and it was like Disney nerds everywhere. And I felt intimidated. And 1 week later, a representative from the Walt Disney Studios comes to our school. He was one of the original animators on Sleeping Beauty. The guy gets up on stage. He was over 70 years old. He used to hang out with Walt Disney. It was amazing. He gets up on stage and he looks out to all of us. There's like 600 students. And he says, but before we begin and I tell you how to get into Disney, let me just see a show of hands. How many of you want to be at Disney? And every hand went up. He says, well, just so you know, out of the 500 or 600 of you, maybe 4 of you will ever work there. That's how competitive it is. And when he said that, I remember thinking one thing. I wonder who the other three are going to be. Because look, in life, we either believe in ourselves that we can accomplish or we don't. And I mean deep down, not what we post on social media, not what we talk about. I mean, deep down, do I really believe that I can accomplish, whether it's a career or, like you said at the beginning, Justin, it's not just what we do, it's who we become along the way. We're not human beings, we're human becomings. The goal of life has to be to grow and to become. And for whatever reason, maybe my supportive parents, or maybe I was, I don't know, a delusional optimist, I believed in myself. Then he said, you got to get a portfolio filled with hundreds of drawings of humans and animals from life. No cartoon characters, he said. We don't want to see that. No drawings of Mickey Mouse, he said. So sophomore year came. I got my best drawings together, put them in a portfolio, and sent them in, and I got rejected. I didn't expect to get in the first time. I just wanted to go through that process. It was also at that time that I met this incredible artist in my school. His name was Andy. And Andy was by far the best artist in the school because the guy never stopped drawing. I would notice him like drawing people playing basketball. And I go up to him like, wait, what class is this for? He's like, it's not for a class. It's just I'm constantly drawing. I want to get better. And he became my best friend. And I can tell you, just me becoming friends with someone like that made me a much better artist, because who you choose to be friends with actually affects who you become. And Andy was that for me. Just incredible work ethic, humility, inspiration, all of it. So that next year comes, and we're drawing nonstop. I'll tell you guys a quick story. There was one day in Columbus, Ohio, freezing. I don't know, Aaron, where'd you grow up?
Here in Southern California. Orange
California.
County.
Justin, where'd you grow up? East Coast or here?
New York.
New York. So, Justin, you know what I'm talking about when I say bitter cold, right?
Mm.
Like freezing day. So we go to the Columbus Zoo to draw animals. So when you guys watch a movie like Lion King, you think animators just have a blank piece of paper and they can draw any animal? No, you got to go learn from life. Walt Disney used to bring deer into the studio when they were making Bambi to draw from life. So we would go to the zoo. So on this one day, me and Andy and like 14 other students, we get on a school bus and we go to the Columbus Zoo to draw animals. And it was bitter cold, freezing day. The second we get to the zoo, all of us go to this Wendy's cafe that they had at the zoo. And we get hot drinks. After about 2 minutes, I sharpen the pencil. Andy sharpens his pencil. We go out there and we draw elephants for 45 minutes in the cold, freezing. Afterwards, I get on the bus. I'm showing Andy my drawings. He's showing me his drawings. And then I said to one of the other guys, I'm like, dude, we never saw you at the elephants. What were you drawing? What animals were you at? The guy looks up to me and says, well, none of us ever left the Wendy's cafe. I said, what do you mean you didn't leave? He goes, yeah, we couldn't leave. I go, why couldn't you leave? He says, because it was too cold. Do you know those are the greatest words I ever heard?
Mm.
When he said that, I wanted to make a T-shirt that said too cold.
It's too
Because
cold.
what he was really saying was too difficult, too
Mhm.
painful, too
Mhm.
hard,
Mhm.
And I knew at that moment that someday I would get in because I would outwork all of them. If you put on a
Mhm.
documentary about anybody that inspires you. Look, I've watched The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, 6 times, one for each of his rings. Sorry, LeBron, you don't have that yet. And every time I watch it, it always brings me back to this thing that he just worked through incredible amounts of struggle and pain. And if we have the clarity in life that something is going to be difficult, we don't have to go through pain at all. We get to grow through pain. You want to
This is
grow
really
something?
interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. This is
No,
really
yeah.
interesting because this is something Aaron and I talk about all the time, because we work with a lot of, individuals building their personal brands. And we also have an academy where we teach people how to do it. And,
Awesome.
on the one hand, like there's this thing, like when you're selling things to people, like the human brain, right, is engineered to look for the easy way out, right? And
Yeah.
you have all of these tools now that are available to you, AI and templates and tricks, and you can copy other people. There's all these, and you can just see, like we see an ad all the time up here on LinkedIn that's like, write 1 month of content in 1 hour, using my AI hack or whatever. And you can go and do it, and you can get good results or something like that. But the people who really push the envelope, and right, like I would say,
Yeah.
I stopped using AI for my writing, and everything improved. Very recently, carousels, for example, on LinkedIn, I decided, you know what, I'm not going to use the Canva templates. I'm gonna I'm gonna make them. I'm gonna take my Remarkable tablet. You'll appreciate this, and I'm gonna make zines.
Mm,
I'm gonna like do it in zine style. So like I
yeah.
just write out the lettering and like weird animation and like and I it takes me about a week to do like 20 or 30 slides
Right.
like a zine, and I put it on LinkedIn and 200 300,000, and people are like, and I'm shocked that the first question people ask me is like, "Are you going to teach a class on how to do this?" I'm like, I think I just introduced them to you and what you just said, like one word. It's the hard work. It's literally that
Yeah.
5% extra. It's
That's
going
right.
out in the cold. It's sitting there with my hand cramping in a Remarkable tablet, like erasing, drawing, making clear.
Because you know
Doing
what's
that.
great about what you're saying? Because forget the end result of what you're trying to accomplish. Forget the end result. Through the process of that investment you're making in that work, you're building
Yeah.
the character attribute of resilience and
Yep.
tenacity. And if you can be resilient and tenacious in furthering your career and you've built that muscle, think what you can do bringing resilience and tenacity into your relationships, into your marriage, into raising children, into becoming the person you're meant to be. Because if you're a person that has expectations that things are going to be easy and quick because that's what AI and that's what all these templates give me, then you're going to start to probably subconsciously expect that your relationships are going to be the same way. And any great marriage, relationship, business partnership, it doesn't matter, requires an insane amount of hard work. That is the hardest work of business. It's those relationships. And we have to be careful, if we're looking for the easy way out with relationships. Look,
Can I ask you a
Andy,
question on that real fast? Sorry
yeah,
to cut you
please.
off, but I mean, that was kind of the direction I was thinking. Is you were talking about being so focused to go all in on learning, your craft.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you, in my life, like I'm not sure I've gone that far. I haven't done that.
not yet.
Not yet, right?
Okay.
But the way that I think about life is I tend to be a very middle of the road guy. I tend to be a very, everything's a nuance and shades. And I'm trying to be really good at a bunch of different parts of my life.
Hmm.
But because that I've never, I've known people who's like, I'm going to be the best that I can in the thing that I do in my career, but then, other things start to drop off a little bit, right? Or I'm going to be the best, in sports, but then maybe your career and your relationships aren't so great, like you said. I sometimes find that because I'm trying to be, really, really good at a lot of things, how I practice my religion, how I show up for my wife and my kids, how I do at work, health and fitness. I'm working hard, but I'm not the master at any. I'm not the best at any of the things.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be the top 4 out of a class of 600 people at any of those things. But I'd probably be, in the top 10% of all of those things. So
Wait,
how do you think about that kind of balance?
okay, so first of all, I love that you're being vulnerable and you're sharing real stuff, and that's awesome. But I'll say this, Aaron. In my experience, and I don't know if this applies to you, right? But I'll say, in my experience, most people will exert themselves the least amount to give themselves the feeling of accomplishment as opposed to real accomplishment. The feeling of accomplishment. I'm working with a client right now. Talk about brand building. This is a singer, okay? And most of the work I do for her is toning up her body to make sure her arms look right in the photos. I want to say to her, just go to the gym. You would save so much money on all this AI work that I'm doing. But it's so much easier. People will do the least amount of effort to give themselves the feeling of accomplishment. The other thing that I've found is that most people will take pleasure in mediocrity. Most people won't say, I want to be great. Be good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm good enough. There's so many people that are worse than me. My marriage is good. I'll speak to a corporate keynote. I'll have like 700 people in front of me at a Forbes company, like top whatever. And one of the things I say to these guys and these women is, if you think about and I'm talking, some people are insanely wealthy, and I'm speaking to them. And I go, maybe you're sitting in the audience right now and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, my life's good. It's good. So why would you settle for good when it could be great? And then some of you I know are thinking right now, you know what? My life is great. Well, why would you settle for great when it could be awesome? Because the fact is, wherever we are in life, whether it's our marriage, raising kids, our business, our knowledge of AI, our knowledge of Canva, whatever it is, we know we're not perfect. We know we can do more. The problem is we take pleasure in settling as opposed to the real pleasure. What's the real pleasure? It's not in the accomplishment at all. The pleasure is knowing that I'm not settling and that I'm giving 110% to what I'm trying to accomplish. The real pleasure is that you put your head on the pillow at the end of the day and you know that you've exerted every ounce of energy to becoming as great as you can possibly be in all aspects of life. That's the pleasure. The pleasure is I put it all out there. I got nothing left in the tank. I've worked everything I can on this relationship. And then if you do that, your life goes from good to great and from great to awesome, you know? But I'll tell you guys, I didn't always have this mindset. When Andy and I took our portfolios after the zoo, I sent it to Disney and I waited, and Andy got into Disney and I got rejected a second time. And that was tough for me. That was a bittersweet day. It was sweet because I was happy for my best friend, but bitter, my dream was shattered. Andy's going to the happiest place on earth, Disney World. By the way, talk about branding and marketing. Whoever came up with that, calling Disney the happiest place on earth, promote them, right? Because they're basically telling the rest of us, you could live in Maui, you could live in wherever, Cabos, Mexico, Malibu. You could be happy, but the happiest people are only in Disneyland and Disney World, right? So Andy goes to Disney World, sunny, beautiful, happiest place on earth. I get rejected. I go back to Ohio in the wintertime, freezing, bitter cold, gray skies, what I felt was the most depressing place on earth. And I'm in the halls, I'm walking by, and people are coming up to me. Blinkoff, what are you doing here? Oh, you didn't get in. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, where's Andy? Oh, he got in. You didn't get in. Everyone saw me as the guy that was friends with the guy that got into Disney. Everyone saw me as the failure. And then I started to see myself as a failure because everyone saw me that way. And I just knew I was the guy that didn't get his dream. And I made a major mistake. I allowed others to define how I feel about myself. And I would tell everyone listening, walk away with one idea from this episode, is don't ever let anybody define how you feel about yourself. Anybody. And by the way, as parents, we know that. We tell that to our kids. Who cares what they think about you? You know who you are. Yeah, but what about us? What? You never post a picture of your dessert that you had, your cheesecake with the little jam, whatever on it, and you don't get enough likes on that? You don't post a reel, you don't get enough likes, you don't feel good. Did you have a good dessert or didn't you? Did you have a good vacation or didn't you? Or is your vacation only become better now because a lot of people like your video? Think about how much control we give others over how we feel about ourselves. Well, I did. And I decided to take that feeling of failure away. And if you ever fail in life and you want to take that feeling of failure away, you do what I did and the feeling will go away like that. You know what I did? I gave up. I gave up on the entire dream. That's right. Aaron's like, did he just say he gave up? Yeah, that's right. That's what I just said. I literally gave up because instead of being the guy that doesn't get what he really, really wants, I'll become the guy that doesn't want anything. And I gave up. I was going to settle for a life of mediocrity. I'll just be an artist, an average artist. Forget Disney. That's for people who are great. Every single one of us wakes up every day and we have a little shoulder angel whispering into our ears, you're going to be great. You're going to get more clients. You're going to build your brand. Your marriage is going to be uplifted. You're going to love being a parent. You're going to meet your soulmate. You're going to change the world. But then there's the other voice, the shoulder devil that's screaming at us. Who do you think you are? That's not for people like you. That's for people like him or her. That's not for you. So I gave up on the entire thing. A week later, a buddy calls me up and says, Saul, I got tickets to go see a movie. You want to go? I'm like, I'm not in the mood. He goes, but they're free. I'm like, okay, then I'll go. Someone offers you free in college, you go. So I go to a third movie that changes my life. I see this movie. It's a true story about a guy who's 5 feet tall. He doesn't have an ounce of athletic ability, and he wants to play football at Notre Dame. What movie is it? Here's part of the movie poster. I'm holding it up right there. There it is, Rudy. You guys have seen this movie. Incredible, right?
Yeah, incredible movie.
Amazing movie. It's a true story. And the guy's 5 feet tall. He doesn't even have an ounce of athletic ability. If you were friends with the real Rudy Rudiger And he told you his dream was to play football at Notre Dame. You know what you would have told him as his friend? Dude, I love you. Get a new dream. And Rudy was like, yeah, well, we'll just see about that. And he tries to get in, rejected. Tries a second time, rejected. Third time, rejected. But fourth time, if you look at the movie poster for the movie Rudy, it says on the poster, when people tell you dreams don't come true, tell them about Rudy. He gets in. And tears are streaming down my face because I remember thinking one thing. If an unathletic kid like this could get into Notre Dame with an insane amount of hard work, then what I felt was an untalented artist like me could get into Disney with an insane amount of hard work. And I vowed to never give up again. And I actually called up Disney. I called up the head of Disney. Who does that? I did. I was crazy. I always tell my kids, when there's something you want in your life, you got to do anything to get it, right?
Mhm.
So I call up the head of Disney and I get this guy on the phone. I'm like, let me ask you a question. I know I got rejected, but how close was I? He goes, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, how close was I to getting in? He goes, well, we picked 17 artists from over 3,800 portfolios around the world, and you made it to number 20. What? I'd only missed it by 3. You know how many times in our life we could be so close to achieving a goal? We feel we're miles away, and all we needed to do is push a little bit more. And then I asked him the billion-dollar question. Why did I not get in? Because when we fail, if we find out what our weakness is, it's nothing less than the answer key to growing. And he told me, he's like, you know what? Honestly, you need more perspective in your drawing. Instead of drawing animals and people from where your eyes are, go down and look up at someone or stand on a stool and look down. And I was like, boom, answer key. I put a brand new portfolio together. I sent it into Disney and boom. When you wish upon a star, I got in. I finally got my dream. Started at the Walt Disney Studios in the 90s. First film I got to work on was Pocahontas. I worked alongside Glenn Keane. He's the one that trained me on how to draw her, which was such an amazing, incredible moment. I actually have a picture of that moment. Oh my gosh, do I have it right here? I think I actually have that picture. I'll see if I can find that and send it to you. I don't know where that went. But yeah, I don't want anyone listening to think that you're hearing the story of a really talented artist that got into Disney. That's not what this is. This is the story of an average artist who got his dream of working at Disney because nobody wakes up great at anything. Right?
It's really interesting. We do a free workshop, and one of the things that I always tell people when it comes to, like, one of the things that people always ask, where do I get ideas from? I don't know what to write about. I don't have a lot of ideas, and so one of the things it's kind of like, it's a tough love type thing where I say you have to be more curious about the world. And I tell the story about Leonardo da Vinci, who, Walter Isaacson did a biography, and he has this paragraph that I'm sure he wasn't thinking much when he wrote it, but to me, I guess it's the equivalent of like seeing one of these movies. When I read this paragraph where he said, people tend to say like, oh, Leonardo da Vinci, touched by God, creates all of these things, like he's a genius. But he's like, you have to be very careful about putting the genius label on Leonardo da Vinci because, Albert Einstein is a genius, right? But none of us will ever attain what Albert Einstein did because it, it's a biological thing. It's like it's this math, type of thing. It's just different level of genius. He says what's unique about Leonardo da Vinci's genius is that he um, he learned it.
There you go. Yep.
He learned it by being curious about the world. And the insane curiosity. And the example I give is I show one in his notebooks, which were just literally notebooks. He would write his to-do lists, and his to-do lists are outrageous. Like, find a mathematician to show me how to square a circle. Draw Mulan. Study and explain the tongue of a woodpecker.
Right.
Like, it's just, and that's just one day. You know what I mean?
Wow.
A
lot of times artists come up to me, or parents will come up to me, especially in front of their kids, teenagers, and they go, oh, my son or daughter, they're so talented. And I say to them, never use the word talented. Forget the word, because the word talent, and you're using the word genius, it's very similar. It's what people often think they were born with. It's biology, right? What made Michael Jordan amazing wasn't his talent. It's what he did with it, the investment he made, the work that I want to learn. People come up to me. I travel a lot, and people come up to me. They're like, "Saul, I'm really inspired by your story, but I haven't figured out what my dream is yet. How do I figure it out? I don't know what my gifts are." And I'm like, careful the word gifts. Again, it's like people think, "Oh, you're born with a gift." So I say, and I think Justin, you're going to subscribe to this because you're saying the same thing in your way, is that the gift is that we have isn't what we do well, it's what interests us. As you said beautifully, it's what makes us curious. If one of your gifts is you're into sports, the gift isn't you're really good at basketball without working at it. The gift is you like sports. Now, what are you going to do about it? The gift is I love music. There's something about music that appeals to me more than my brother or sister. Then that's the gift. Now, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to invest in it? I love what you said about him. He's like, I want to understand. What was it? The bird?
Study the tongue of a woodpecker.
Right. There you go. He wants to understand the world around him. It almost sounds like Ariel, doesn't he? I wonder
Yeah.
what's a fire and why does it? What's the
Or
word?
I'm pretty sure that line was stolen from Leonardo da Vinci's Notebook.
There you
He
go.
would sit there and be like, "Why does mist reflect light this way?
That's
Why
right.
does like?" He would just really get into it. But I want to bring something out. I want to put Aaron on the spot here a little bit because this is something Aaron and I debate about
No
a
pressure.
lot. Right? One of the things is like this whole curiosity thing. And, Aaron will sometimes come to me and I'll be talking and Aaron will be like, yeah, but Justin, people aren't like you. You can't just like pump out content like that all the time or come up with these ideas or sit there and like, I'm going to draw a zine and I don't even know if it's going to work, like, I'm like, why not? Like, what, like, it's like, well, yeah, because
And
you're
I'll tell you
not
why not.
curious enough. What?
And I'll tell you, and I think I'll tell you why not, because you've chosen to be the master of creativity and advertising and creating content. And a lot of the other people we work with have chosen to be the masters at other things. And then they're trying to figure out how to do this content thing also. They've become masters of their realm. Maybe they're an accountant, maybe they're a lawyer, maybe they're whatever. What you've chosen to be the master of, you're saying, well, anyone could be the master of the thing that I've chosen to be a master of, right? But they want to be good at the thing you've chosen to be the master of and a master of something else. And you're saying, yeah, they could be the same as me, but that's not their goal.
Yeah, most people don't have the goal. My son said to me the other day, he's like, Dad, I want to be on the track team. You think it'll be easy? And I said, well, it depends how good you want to be. If you want to be good at track, for you, it'll probably be easy. Do you want to be great? It's going to be hard. Do you want to be the greatest track runner in the history of high school? Then you're going to have to bleed and you're going to have to sweat. How great do you want to be? The truth is, people don't want to work hard. They just don't, especially this generation. They're just not up for it. That's one of the greatest challenges I have as a parent, raising 4 kids. My oldest is 20, my youngest is 12. And since they were born, my wife and I try to instill that with them. I remember when my son was 3 or 4 years old, he was trying to untangle the headphones to the iPad, the headphones. And he goes, Dad, can you do this for me? And I go, why can't you do it? He goes, well, it's too hard. I can't do it. I said, you can't do it or you can't try. I'll give you one more story. How about this one? 2 daughters. When my oldest daughter was like 4, she had taken all the blocks. So parents listening, I think personally one of the greatest gifts you can give your kids is blocks, wood blocks, like a beautiful set. We got our kids, every shape. I loved it as a kid. And you can build, and Justin, you'll appreciate this with your creativity and your imagination. You can build whatever you can imagine. Boy, did they grow up with those blocks. But when my daughter was like 3 years old, she had taken all the blocks out. And I said, you got to put them away now. And she goes, I can't. There's too many. And I'm like, you can do it. You got to put it. She's like, and she started crying, overwhelmed, because all she saw was 300 blocks or whatever it was. And then her younger sister, my youngest daughter at that point, who's just a year and a half younger, who didn't see hundreds of blocks, just saw one block and put it away. And then another block and put it away. And another block. And before you knew it, my older daughter's looking and she's seeing my younger daughter do this. They started doing it together and the blocks are put away. The challenge that a lot of us have is when we think of a goal to become, as you said, Aaron, the master of something. we see the overwhelming amount of effort, how impossible, how far away it is from where I am right now. You're standing at the base of a ladder and you look up and there's 100 rungs of a ladder. And at the top is the mountain, the window, whatever you want to get to. Of course, you can't get up there, but you know what you can do? One step at a time. Once you have the clarity of the goal you're trying to achieve, now make yourself a goal that's the lower hanging fruit. I want to take one step. And once you take that one step up the ladder, you stop, you look down where you started, realize what you have done, take pleasure in that accomplishment, because that pleasure will give us energy and will motivate us to continue climbing. And then we can be like Justin, because we're not overwhelmed by the final result of where we're going. We say, you know what? Yeah, I can advance my relationship, my business in some small way. You guys remember that movie, Groundhog Day? Not Groundhog Day. What About Bob with Bill Murray? Remember What About Bob?
Yeah.
Sounds
With
familiar.
Richard Dreyfuss. So Bill Murray plays this like OCD, whatever, and Richard Dreyfuss plays his therapist. And he says to him, Bob, you just got to take baby steps, one step at a time. That's what we have to do in life. And by the way, at the end of every day, we should just say to ourselves, what did I not accomplish? Okay, tomorrow I want to get through my whole inbox. I got 500 messages. I got 1,000 messages. No, that's not the goal. Tomorrow it's, I want to get through 10. That's it. Somebody called me up. You know, I do coaching. And this guy was like, oh, I'm having a tough time because I want to write my book. I don't have time. Because to write a book takes, 100 hours, whatever. Of course, with AI, ChatGPT-4 and all that, now you can do it in 5 minutes. But okay, if you really want to write a book, it's going to take time. So I said to him, what time do you wake up on Sundays? He's like, I wake up at 9 o'clock. I'm like, great, wake up at 8:50. And for 10 minutes on every Sunday, you'll write your book. He's like, yeah, but that's not enough time to write a book. It's more time than you're putting in now. And if you have a set time to accomplish something, then at least throughout the week, the burden, the anxiety you have in your mind because you're not doing any of it will go away. It'll dissipate because now you'll know that at least this Sunday, I can look forward to it. And last Sunday, I did a little bit. And now you're chipping away at your book. And who knows, maybe you'll even be able to wake up at 7 a.m. And now you have a set time. That's why in order to accomplish something, I found for me personally, is to have a set time for things. Don't have an inbox. Put it in your calendar. That's a game changer. Instead of having an inbox or a to-do list of everything you want to do that just overwhelms you, don't put in a to-do list. Just put it right into your calendar right away and stick to that calendar. Your calendar becomes your to-do list. Now you've already allotted time to accomplish.
Mm.
I like
Right?
that.
Yeah.
That's why
I'm
I use
also-
Motion, Aaron.
Yeah.
See?
Like
Yeah,
I'm
I used to have
also,
an app that did that for a while, and I stopped using it for some reason.
you guys are movie buffs, right?
Mhm.
Nothing.
What do you have a favorite movie of all time? Like is there like a movie, Justin, that comes on and you're like, I'm watching, it comes on. They don't come on anymore because now we have to click, right?
I like to phrase this as like, what's the movie you watch when you're sick?
Yeah, what's the movie?
Everybody, for me, I just go through the director's cuts of all 3 Lord of the Rings.
Whoa. So you've seen them many times, yeah?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you can't get enough, right?
I could watch it again right now.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really
I
weird, but
understand why
yeah.
you reference the movie all the time.
What's that, Aaron?
That's why I'm
Why
referencing Lord of the Rings all the
movie
time.
all the time.
Oh.
Always like on his fingertips.
What
I
about
also
you,
read
Aaron?
the book when I was a kid, and the cartoons
Right.
by those weird French illustrators who did the cartoons of Lord of the Rings in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
They're like-
I know who you mean.
They were like really spooky, scary.
Aaron, you got to have a movie. Come on.
You know, I used to always say Shawshank Redemption,
I knew you were
Right.
going there.
but it's been a long time since I've watched it, and can barely remember. It's been so long. But I know that when I was younger, that's what I always said. Now I don't watch a lot of movies. I don't have patience for it.
By the way, Shawshank Redemption, since you brought it up, incredible messages in that movie. I always tell people, if you have a movie that you love and you watch it when you're sick, like Justin does, and he watches it over and over again, if you don't leave that movie implementing the messages and the themes of that movie, then you've wasted your time, right? Shawshank Redemption. You've seen it many times, right, Aaron?
Yeah.
But there's a theme in that movie, and the theme is get busy living or get busy dying. Life is a choice. You could be in the worst prison in the world, but in your mindset, you're free. Or you could be free, but in your mindset, you're in prison. Life is a choice. That's the message.
Yeah.
For me, the movie that I watch when I'm sick, I'm going to show you the toy because I remember we always have toys on our desk. What's this from, guys?
Wait, the movie you watched is Deliverance?
No, that's a good guess.
It was,
Looks familiar, but I don't know.
Okay, here comes part of the poster. Boom, 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 boom,
Jaws.
boom, boom, boom. There it is. So,
oh,
so this is Quint from Jaws, played by Robert Shaw. Okay, this is my
Deliverance.
favorite. This is my favorite. Deliverance. I'm never going to see this toy
Sorry.
the same way. Every time I see this, I'm going to hear that banjo. Ding, 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 ding. Thanks a lot, Justin. So Jaws was the movie. I mean, look, E.T. is my second favorite movie of all time in the history of film, and I could watch it. I listen to the soundtrack at least 3 times a week. It's amazing. John Williams at his best. But Jaws, and by the way, Jaws, I'm going to plug. Turns 50 this summer.
Hmm.
And if anyone is free, you should head to Martha's Vineyard, because the entire town where they shot the movie has been redesigned to look like Amity, and all
That's
Jaws
awesome.
nerds like me are coming from around the world to go experience Jaws at 50. It's pretty cool. But to me, the message in this film, Jaws, as great as the story is and what the main characters go through, it's that Steven Spielberg was 20 something years old, got the biggest job of his life. He had done a TV show called Night Gallery, which was like a Twilight Zone. Then he did Duel, which is a movie about a truck trying to drive a guy off the road. It was a TV movie.
That's good.
Great
Yeah.
movie, right? And then he did Sugarland Express, which is based on a true story starring Goldie Hawn. And then he's in Zanuck's office and he sees the script from Jaws. He's like, what's that shark thing? I want to see that. And so he reads it. He gets the movie. He's 20 something years old. And the shark would not work. The big mechanical shark that they made, they shot it in the actual ocean in Martha's Vineyard, and they couldn't get the shark to work. And as a creative filmmaker, he pushed so hard to continue to figure out a creative way to scare his audience. And on the opening scene of that movie, when Chrissy goes swimming at night, you remember the scene, and she gets pulled down. The script said that you see the shark and it's eating her and all this stuff. He couldn't get the shark to work. But Spielberg, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, said, I'm not going to blame the technology. I will figure out another way to accomplish my goal. And what did he do? He ended up not showing the shark at all.
Mhm.
You don't even show the shark. You just show her swimming at night and she gets dragged down. And because we didn't see the shark, it actually becomes more scary because our imaginations make the shark even worse. And it's a great message to all of us, no matter what we're doing. Yes, you could have a goal. You want to be great. You want to be awesome. There's going to be a time in your life where you're going to hit a snag, and you can't control the outside experiences. We can't control these things around us. Can't control people around us. All we can control is how we react to it. There's no blaming anyone. It's taking the limitations that I have and the parameters I have and figuring out how can I accomplish my goal no matter the parameters or the limitations.
Wow. So
Right, Justin, that's what we did on our project together.
that's it. That is
Right?
that.
We had a time frame, we had a budget, we had clients that wanted something specific and every one of those limitations, and boom, we nailed it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the mindset. That's the mindset, by the way, we have to give our kids. You know, we have to give our kids, because they have to understand that. Because the expectation that things are going to be smooth is a mistake. The expectation that marriage is going to be easy, that raising teenagers is going to be easy, is a mistake. You know, we have to have the expectation that it's going to be difficult. And when we have that expectation, it can motivate us to accomplish, you know? Boom,
You know what
boom,
I'm
boom, boom,
thinking?
boom, 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 boom.
You know what I'm thinking, Aaron? We should just have Saul like sporadically as guests when other guests are on too. It's like
Yeah.
just like to give that inspirational pull, but also like we should definitely have him in one of the academies. Because I
That'd be
feel
fun.
like I can already think of like 4 people who just like need to hear what you just said.
Oh,
Everything
appreciate that.
for the
Any way
past
to collaborate with you guys would be great.
We love it.
Thank you,
Um,
guys.
so we're just coming up. I want to be cognizant of time. There's just not enough time. So Chris, our producer, was gonna try to find a time to book you again because there. I wanted to dive into some other things, but for now, we have a kind of before we wrap up, we have a quick rapid fire round
Ooh, I love this.
for
Okay.
you.
Rapid fire questions. Here we go.
Yeah, just answer with the first thing that comes to mind. No wrong answers.
Okay.
They don't have to be rapid answers. It's just a rapid questions.
Okay.
So,
Right.
okay. First animated character you ever tried to draw?
Aladdin. Aladdin. I saw the movie. I came home and I didn't stop drawing all night. I was so inspired by that movie and those characters. I was in college. Before that, I didn't really draw cartoon characters, but once I saw that movie, I'm like, you know what? I saw everything that I was drawing in figure drawing and drawing humans. I saw it in that character, and even to this day, he's still one of my favorite characters to draw. As a matter of fact, I actually have a drawing of Aladdin that was given to me as a gift from Glenn Keane, the man that animated it. He gave it to me in 1999. I'm going to show it to you right now. My assistant is grabbing it. Translation, my wife. Here we go. So this is an original drawing of Aladdin from Glenn Keane. He did for me as a gift. He was my boss on Pocahontas, and he wrote on there to Saul, best wishes. It was for my birthday. 3 of them, Glenn Keane. That's definitely that's my favorite character to draw.
Saul, you're talking about favorite movies. I was in high school when the movie came out, and I actually saw it so many times, Aladdin, that I was able, and I did, recite the entire movie by heart.
Wow.
Standing up straight and just reciting word for word the entire movie.
Wow, what great! Isn't that
Yeah.
amazing?
I don't know if I should be embarrassed or proud of that, but
No, I can't believe you said that. The other day, my wife and I were walking, and we saw in like the neighbors. I can't believe I'm admitting this. Like the apartment building near us on like the 3rd floor, there was a huge screen. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and we saw that glow, and we saw that they were watching Aladdin. And of course, I know all the words also, right? Because I'm obsessed with it. So my wife and I just stood outside, and I just did all the lines along with it. Here, I'll show you another character that I love to draw. I'm actually going to draw it for you right now. You can actually see how we create characters here. This is, even though Aladdin is my favorite, this is the other one. As Walt Disney used to say, it all started with a mouse. So for those of you that can't see, I'm drawing just a bunch of circles and putting them together. And here we have the corporate icon for the biggest storytelling company in history, Disney. Here he is, Mickey Mouse. And that's how we do it. It's just a rough drawing of the mouse. Boom.
Wow.
nice.
And you teach people how to it's part of your workshop, right? Like you
Yeah, I do a workshop.
All...
I have executives in front of me, and I give them 1 minute to draw Mickey Mouse from their memory. Not allowed to look at a phone. These aren't even artists, right? These are just anybody. You pick a company, and I give them 1 minute to draw it, and their drawings are, they're like this. I mean, they're terrible. No offense, right? And they're uncomfortable. And then I teach them the same methods that the Disney studios taught me over the next 35 minutes. And they're doing drawings that are beautiful. And then I had like Disney music playing. It's so much fun. And then I have them take out the original drawing they did and compare it to the one that they just did that's beautiful. And their mouths drop open. They can't believe what they were able to accomplish. And I've had grown men literally come to me almost in tears. One guy said to me, you know what I'm doing? I'm framing the first drawing I did and this one to show all my team of the potential of a human being.
Whoa.
There is no can't. Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh boy. All right, rapid fire. Let's go.
Oh wait. Yeah. Now
it's the slowest rapid fire I've ever seen.
Okay. Well, so but it's just really interesting you say that, like, because one of the things that I tell writers to do, I say, forget about it. You don't need to sign up for writing workshops. You don't need to. I say just, and this is hard work. I say take like 10 things that you want to emulate, the 10 best that you find, and every day I want you to handwrite them into a notebook, word for word, with your hand. Copy the words over and over. So if it's like a guy's post that you like. I was forced to do this with direct mail letters in order to learn how to write direct mail. So from the great direct mail copywriters, just write them by hand every day, 10 of them every day. And it takes all day to do. And your hand gets cramped and everything. Right. But by the end of doing that for a week, I can't explain. Like when people ask me, like, how do you know all the formulas? How do you know how to write this way? I don't explain it. Somehow in doing that, I internalized all of it. All of
that discipline.
Well, it's probably the discipline, but like also like this, I began to recognize like word choices and story outline and just like how it was framed. And it would come out of me, of course, with my own style and my own voice, but like
Mm-hmm.
the formula would just like come that way. And so I tell, it's like the closest you could get to the Matrix, where you just plug it in the back of your
Yeah.
head, and like, I know kung fu, I know how to write. Like, you just do something over and over and over again, you
Yeah.
know, in a short amount of time. Because I'm just a week. I'm just saying, a
Right.
week. Do
Right.
this in a week.
Yeah.
Writing's not an easy thing either, you know. And you can distill it to a day, probably, if you wanted to. In a short amount of time, you could become a, a, a really good writer, you
Yeah.
know. And it's a great lesson that
Beautiful
you
lesson. I
with
love
that.
it. Oh yeah.
But yours is even better because just to see that before and after with visual, it's even
Yeah.
better. Okay, so if you could reboot any classic cartoon, what would it be?
Mm. Um, I love these questions.
Mhm.
I was always a big Super Friends fan growing up. I loved. Remember Super Friends? Did you watch
Super
it?
Friend. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I didn't
Was
watch
like
it, but I knew about it.
yeah. I love that. Let me see if that would be. I mean, the truth is, I'm actually really happy for the reboot. You guys are gonna laugh of Little House on the Prairie. So that's a show that I showed my wife and I showed our kids. One of the greatest things you can show your kids as far as like what the values of this country were built on. And we love that show. And I heard there's a reboot coming, A Little House on the Prairie. So I'm really pumped. Not animated, but yeah. I mean, maybe Mighty Mouse was also one of my
Ooh,
favorite.
good one.
Remember Mighty Mouse?
Sure.
Yeah,
Like that would be fun. Maybe we should work on that. Okay.
Here I come to
yeah.
say good.
Maybe we should work.
Okay,
With AI, we could do something on that pretty quick, actually.
probably. Yeah.
So there you go. I'm gonna go Mighty Mouse.
Okay. What's more intimidating, pitching to the studio or giving a keynote to 2,000 people?
Oh, that's a great question. Pitching to a studio is less intimidating, and it has nothing to do with the people. It has to do with because the goal is when I pitch this to a studio is I hope that they will accept this property that I can develop and impact potentially another person. But when I'm getting up on a stage at a corporate keynote, event or any kind of event, before I'm backstage before they call me out, it's always the same thing. It's always I'm like praying, please God, give me the words, give me the ability to be able to share something real to make a sincere impact on at least one person in here. I take that responsibility very seriously. Um, it's like the movie Lion King. Lion King is my favorite animated movie of all time, even though I didn't work on it. But the message in that film, that movie wasn't huge because we love lions. That movie was huge because that movie gave us the theme, the message of taking responsibility for the world. And responsibility is wherever we have the ability to respond. Responsibility is an ability. And that's a thing that all of us have to ask ourselves. How do I take my passions, my abilities, my interests, my gifts, talents, interests, curiosities, whatever you like? How do I use all of that to impact humanity, ultimately taking
Hmm.
responsibility for the world? So there's my short answer for that.
Got it. Good one. Okay. If your life were an animated film, what song would play during the opening credits?
um, there's a song that I'm pretty sure neither of you have heard. Most people have never heard this song. It was never a mainstream anything song. It's a song called Glorious. It's written or it's performed by David Archuleta. So I'm urging all the listeners,
Okay.
go check out the song Glorious, David Archuleta, because it's a beautiful song about how do we nurture our own abilities. And there's one line in there that he sings that if we tap into our limitless potential, then the line is others around us will start to wake up and see like their potential. And that's really my goal in life. And I think that's the goal all of us really need to subscribe to is how do I take who I am and impact another person? So everyone check out the song Glorious, David Archuleta, blast it in your cars, play it for your kids, and you'll see it's a pretty inspiring song.
We're
Beautiful
gonna link to it
song.
in the show notes.
Yeah.
Got it. Favorite voice actor of all time?
Favorite voice actor of all time would be my dear friend Patrick Warburton, who I've worked with. He does the voice of Putty. He's Putty in Seinfeld. He's Kronk in Kronk's Two Group. Yeah, Kronk, that guy. So I work with Patrick on many movies on Disney that I directed. I brought him in on a show I did at DreamWorks Madagascar. He's just the best guy, and I love him. So I would go with Patrick Warburton.
Disney villain you secretly admire?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I'm going. I'm going Ursula. Ursula is just to me just the best villain. And what's really funny about Ursula, if people remember, she's this like 400 pound octopus, and she sings, "I admit that in the past I've been a nasty. They weren't kidding when they called me Willow Witch." Remember? But
Mhm.
the animator for Ursula was a 5'3" little quiet Filipino man named Ruben Aquino, who was my boss on Shang on Mulan. I worked under him on the movie Mulan as an animator on Shang. But just to know that Ruben Aquino, this soft spoken little Filipino quiet man, could become Ursula. I always see that when I see her performance,
That's
and it
funny.
inspires me to what's my potential. Who can I become out of my comfort zone?
Whoa. Whoa. That is cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool visual. Geez, there's so many. What's one weird or unexpected source you turn to for inspiration?
One unexpected source I turn to for inspiration. I go to Barnes and Nobles a lot, and I go to the kids section, and I see which books kids are reading, responding to. But the best for me is when I see a parent sitting there reading to their kid, and I kind of like voyeuristically watch. I hope that doesn't sound creepy,
No.
but because I want to see how the kids are reacting to certain sequences and books and stories and what grabs their attention. I'm obsessed with understanding how stories are perceived and how we as filmmakers and storytellers can use different mediums to get that emotional response from an audience. I'm always fascinated by that. As a filmmaker, I always say you can get a whole audience filled with people. You can stand up in front of them and give them a message. Wicked. The message is defy gravity. Whatever's holding you back in life, you can defy gravity yourself. It's a mindset. But as a filmmaker, you basically say, you know what? Don't listen to me. Shut off your phone. Watch this glowing rectangle for the next two, or in the case of Wicked, 3.5 hours. And you won't just know the message, you'll experience it.
Mm,
I'm always really intrigued by that, of how people experience stories and the magic of that.
okay. So, speaking of which, on that one, the next one is what's more powerful, a great story or a great speaker?
Mm. Well, a great speaker can't exist without being a great storyteller. Period.
Okay.
You knew where I was going with that,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because I have a daughter. She's 18. I have a couple daughters, three of them actually, and a son. And she's kind of become a speaker in her own right. And I taught her and our kids young is like, if you want to speak, it's just basically telling a story, sharing the message, then tell another story, share a message. That's the formula you'll see even in this interview. I'm just sharing you stories that I love sharing or that I experienced myself, and then sharing that message. But hopefully a great speaker has to be a great storyteller.
What's one thing that instantly brings you joy?
One thing that instantly brings me joy is tucking in my 12-year-old daughter
Mm.
is the best thing in the world. I love that. In addition to that, listening to the soundtrack to ET, it takes me back to when I was 11 years old. The way that John Williams weaved that score together, every single track, all of it.
You
When I
listen
need
to
to,
movie soundtracks while you work, right?
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, when I need to be creative, and by the way, you should throw that in the show notes for ET. I'll tell you the name of the track, and it's unbelievable. It's end credits ET. So just throw that on and watch how you soar.
Uh,
That's my inspiration.
so Um, I don't know how to phrase this question. I always like to ask this question. I guess I'm gonna put it towards animation. Um, so, what's one thing that's going to change about animation in the next 5 to 10 years?
You mean the next 5 or 10 minutes? Because
Okay.
animation has changed in the past year in the most monumental ways, obviously with AI.
Hmm.
It's incredible. It's another question I get asked a lot when I'm speaking is how has AI affected the animation industry? I mean, the
We can
truth
go.
is, yeah,
We can go on and
it's,
on about that. I'm sure.
I'm sure we can. Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. The ways that I hope that the animation industry goes over the next couple years is that more people, because of the AI technology, feel that they can utilize technology to tell personal stories. It used to be that Disney decided what story they were that the world was going to hear. DreamWorks, Pixar. Obviously, YouTube is not so new. Now anybody is a TV producer, right? Anybody can tell their story. But specifically using animation, which is relatively an expensive medium. It's an expensive medium to make an animated film. I mean, cost $200 million in 4.5 years to make a Pixar movie today. But using animation now, I think more and more people, because of AI, have access to that medium and they can tell stories. And I look forward to hearing those stories.
Hmm. Yeah, we could go on and on about that, especially with that whole trend of taking that Japanese animator and
Yeah,
everyone was going crazy. But
that's right.
what's one thing that's not going to change in animation in the next 5 to 10 years?
The thing that will never change is that audiences will always be hungry for a great story and a main character they can relate to. That will
Hmm.
never change. It doesn't matter what the medium looks like. It doesn't matter how slick the effects are or how beautiful the score is. Its audiences will always be craving a fresh take on a story where they see themselves as the protagonist. That will never change. That's primal.
And I guess we could basically apply that to your own life as well, as you began this saying by we're basically stories, right? So
Yeah,
it's
we're all living our own personal story. That's exactly right.
so since the point of Genius Scouts is to introduce brilliance to the world, who is an artist or innovator or leader that you think people should know about, but might not know about yet?
Yeah, that's great. Um, so I think my favorite storyteller who people know, but I don't know if they really look at, would be Norman Rockwell. So Norman Rockwell, if you look at his paintings and his illustrations, he was a master storyteller in one frame. In
Mm,
one frame. And one of my favorite pastimes with my kids growing up is we have a bunch of Norman Rockwell books. Is to sit with my kids at different ages and show them a painting and just listen. What do you see? And like there's an example. There's a painting he did of this girl. She's sitting outside the principal's office, and she was just in a fight. She's got to be like 14 years old, all scrappy. And behind her, you see in the principal's office is her mom or her dad talking to the principal. So this girl's busted. She's in trouble and she's sitting right outside the principal's office. Her socks down. She's all scraped up. She's got a black eye. What do you think her expression should be if you're sitting there in trouble, principal in there,
scared.
scared? She has a huge smile on her face.
Mm,
So why is she smiling? Because she won. She won the fight, you know? And it's just this little extra bit that Norman Rockwell gives us as a storyteller. So I urge people who are, it doesn't matter, marketing, branding, visual medium, storytelling, filmmaking, go through a Norman Rockwell book or go online, find some of these paintings and look at the details. I'm going to hold it up to the screen right now. My
there
assistant,
it is.
my
Yeah,
wife just
that's
found
fun.
it. Here it is. There she is, right? Outside the principal's office, they're talking about her, and look at her face. Because she's probably thinking, you should see the other girl. You know what I mean?
That you know what? I never realized why I referred to Norman Rockwell. I think I referred to him yesterday. I was working on a campaign with somebody, and I was like, the image needs to tell the story. The image needs to tell the story. And I think I even said, it's like Norman Rockwell. And then I
Wow.
was very quick, and I said, but please, like, don't make it vintage looking like Norman Rockwell. But I think that it's
Right.
like Norman Rockwell. It's like a story and a scene. And I
Look at that. Look at
yeah.
that. And by the way, you know who has the biggest Norman Rockwell collection of original paintings in the world is my second favorite storyteller, Steven Spielberg. How cool is that?
Does he? Well, that makes sense.
So people want to know what he does with his money. He buys Norman Rockwell paintings.
All right, Saul, this has been an incredible conversation. Your journey, your perspective, and your mission to live and to help others live a life of awesome is exactly the kind of story we love to share. Thank you for joining us on Genius Scouts. And for those who want to follow your work or follow you and learn more about you, where should they go?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you both for having me as a guest. And I also want to just thank all of the audience who's been tuned into this or watching this. I appreciate you showing up. And again, I commend each of you for setting your own time, your own schedule to come to something like this and to learn from Justin and Aaron and their guests. So well done. If anyone wants to follow me and see the things I'm doing, please go to my website, which is Saul, S-A-U-L, like Better Call Saul. It's saulblinkoff.com. From saulblinkoff.com, you'll have access to my podcast. Everything I do as a speaker, animation, everything is on there. And of course, follow me on Instagram. I'm always putting out content, whether I'm hanging out with my kids or a message comes to me when I'm at the beach or at the store, whatever. I'm just throwing out ideas and always trying to share my perspective to make an impact. And thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so
before
much.
I let you go, I want to say a big thank you because I think I've left this podcast a little bit more inspired than I have even from many of the other incredible guests that we've had.
Wow.
I'm glad that Justin's so excited.
That was my goal.
I've actually got a to-do
For
list.
you too, Chris.
A creative to-do list that I've actually got at the end of this episode, and part of it is just going back to rewatch some of those Disney movies that I loved growing up because honestly, like my kids haven't watched some of the, I'm going to call them old school Disney from like the 90s.
Yeah.
They've watched all the newer stuff, but so like therefore I haven't watched it because my kids haven't watched it. So I'm going to go back and watch that.
Beautiful.
I'm about to eat my lunch and I'm going to listen to the ET soundtrack while I do that.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I'm not a great storyteller, but I know like lately I've just been thinking about it more and more. I'm like, you know what? That's the thing. That's the thing that I'm inspired right now. Like
Aaron's borrowed my copy of Save the Cat.
I need to be at least very, very good at it. And hopefully
Beautiful.
a master as well. And like,
Beautiful.
You've inspired me. So I appreciate that.
Thanks for sharing that, Aaron. You made my day for sharing what you just shared. Appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Mission accomplished.
Thanks for tuning in to the Genius Scouts podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more episodes, and if you're ready to take your personal brand to the next level, visit geniusscouts.com.